thank you again for giving me the opportunity to be here. Thank you for everything that you do, and looking forward to an amazing year ahead. So I was provided with a number of questions that I would like to be able to answer for you, some things that are on people's minds. And so I'll start with that as opposed to maybe doing a normal presentation. So first question is, David, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Well, that's really open-ended. I suppose what I would say is that when I was about 8 or so, I visited the laboratory of Thomas Edison. I grew up in New Jersey, and my parents would like to take me on adventures on the weekend. My dad and I would very often go hiking through the woods, and I developed a very deep appreciation for nature and our planet and the beauty of our planet. And one weekend, though, we went down to the laboratory of Thomas Edison, and it completely resonated with me. And I knew right there and then that I wanted to be an inventor. And I said that to my father, and he said, well, there's no such job. There's no such job as an inventor. And I thought that was kind of strange, because there I was seeing Thomas Edison, who was obviously very successful. And so I didn't let that bother me too much. And I went along dreaming of the day when I could be an inventor, which was a long time coming, but eventually happened. And something else that really changed my life when I was in my early teens, I was about 13, 14 years old, and I was living in New Jersey, and I became part of a prayer group. And it was there that I grew up as a Catholic, and I would consider myself a Christian today. And I grew up studying the Bible and trying to understand the relationship that people have with God. And that's been something that I've worked to deepen through the years, is understanding for how we were created, why we were created, and the meaning of life. And ultimately, we are all part of God's family. That's what this is all about, is that God is creating a family, and we can either choose to accept God into our lives or not. Choice is ours. And then later on, as I got into my 20s, I graduated from college with a degree in computer science. I went for further studies in biology. And when I got out of school, I was working for a company in New Jersey designing medical devices. And then I began a number of entrepreneurial adventures, which eventually led to a company when I was living in Georgia. And me and a very small group of 5 guys, we were designing new technologies for the U.S. Navy. And I specifically was working on emergency oxygen supplies and primarily emergency power generation. So some of you may have wondered, why are we coming out with a drone technology? Well, it's because of this background that I have in power generation tech. And we might talk about that a little bit later because it's incredibly exciting what we're doing with that and what it means to our future here at LifeWave. And as a result of that collaboration and that work, I was invited to be part of a design team for a mini sub, and the crew of the mini sub were Navy SEALs. And so I was asked to come in and see if I could make a contribution. And one of the things that really concerned me is that the crew of subs and other special operations personnel were taking amphetamines and other type of stimulants, overdosing on caffeine to stay awake because the missions were so long. So I thought, we have cell phones today where we can communicate all over the world. Could we have a wireless technology where we could communicate with the human body and have it to make more energy. And after 3 years of work, that is what led into LifeWave. So LifeWave started in 2002. So I've been at this 20 years now, and it's been an incredible journey. While we started with one product, which was simply designed to elevate fat burning naturally in the body with light. Today, we've gone through phases where we've released anti-aging products, now stem cell products, and what's in our lab today are products to reverse human aging. And I'm incredibly excited about what we've done with this technology and where it's going and how it's going to show up in new products here at LifeWave in the future. So our goal is to provide patented technology that we develop and we make exclusive to LifeWave, and it's backed by solid research so that when we release these products, you can know that they're safe and that they're effective and that they're backed by science. Okay, what inspired you to start LifeWave? Well, actually, I would have been content 20 years ago with just being an inventor. I would have been quite happy developing products and having a rather simple life, but God had some other plans for me, and that's just fine with me because I've been extraordinarily blessed with network marketing and what this industry has brought to my life personally, which is an incredible sense of fulfillment. The ability to create new technologies that benefit people, that inspire hope and provide healing, and have the satisfaction of knowing that this company is doing good in the world and bringing light to the world when we so desperately need it. So initially, when I started LifeWave, I was looking for an opportunity to market the products. It first started off actually where I was going to develop this for the Navy, but then 9/11 happened. And when 9/11 happened, only thing really that government contractors and military were interested in were weapon systems. And so all of the people that I was doing business with, you couldn't reach anymore. So it was like a wall came down in that whole world. And I had a family and 2 young children that I needed to support. So I thought, well, I've invented this patch technology. Maybe I can see if I can market it out to the civilian market and see what we get. So I started to demonstrate the patches to some business friends of mine, and they got very excited about it and were very interested in seeing that I take this out to market. So it was on that basis that I set up LifeWave. And I really never intended to start a network marketing company. My goal was to be an inventor and to find a company that could distribute the products. That was really the goal. And so I began to look at radio advertising, TV advertising. I even filmed an infomercial as a company, as a market test, which of all things, it was released on Easter Sunday in 2003. And then began to speak with General Nutrition Center and went up to their corporate headquarters, and they gave me an offer to distribute the patches across the country, which was extremely appealing at that time. But I had a number of things come up in my business life where I would introduce the patches to someone and they would tell me, oh, I have a friend who would really be interested in this. You have to meet them. Then I would meet that person and they'd say, oh, I have a friend that you should talk to about this. Then I met someone that was interested in investing a lot of money in LifeWave, and he said, well, I'd like a doctor who's a scientist that I know evaluate this. Would you speak with him? Which I did. That was Dr. Steve Haltiwanger, and we became extremely good friends. after speaking on the phone for about 6 hours over a course of 2 days. And Dr. Haltiwanger introduced me to a medical doctor in California, Dr. Carl Merritt. And Dr. Carl Merritt introduced me to Coach Richard Quick, a 6-time U.S. Olympic swim coach. And over a period of about 3 weeks, we were then, I was invited to come out to Stanford in California and apply the energy patches to Olympic swimmers. And as I was looking for ways to market LifeWave, it became extraordinarily obvious that all of the success that the company was experiencing was because of networking. Wasn't TV or radio advertising, wasn't printed advertisements. It was getting out there, demonstrating the products, showing what the products could do, and connecting with people. And so ultimately, that's why LifeWave was started. And one other interesting thing, so from the day that Olympic swimmers were wearing patches in Long Beach, California at the Olympic trials, this was late July, August of 2004, we had about 1,000 people come forward because they heard about this and want to be distributors. So 3 months later, after some good fortune, on November 10th of 2004, we started LifeWave, the network marketing company. So that's why we celebrate our official anniversary on November 10th of every year. And but actually, LifeWave as a company started on July 13th of 2002. Okay, why did you decide to sell your patches as a network marketing company? And I believe that we have just covered that. I firmly believe, by the way, that if the products had been distributed through GNC or through infomercial, it would have been a very short-lived success because the people that I was meeting with did not understand that this was a technology. They were looking at this as a product that you go out and market, and that's kind of the end of it. And I was trying to communicate this vision of, no, this is not a product, it's a technology. And there are many other products that can come based off of the tech. But I was the only one that really saw that at the time. And so fortunately, this meant that I took matter into my own hands with the help of a lot of people, and we started LifeWave, the network marketing company. And we've been extraordinarily successful ever since. Very, very few companies make it to as far as we have, being 20 years in business now and 18 years as a network marketing company. So certainly, while we've made mistakes, we've certainly done a lot of things. We've done a lot of things right. And as I said earlier, you don't get to be this successful as a network marketing company unless you have great leaders. And so when you look at not only the success that we're having here in the United States, but the success globally, as in Japan and Taiwan, for example, Thailand, in each and every case, you can point to leaders that built those markets and made those markets successful. We provide the products, the research, we manufacture the products and handle the distribution and the customer service. So we provide that foundation, but none of that matters without leaders and our brand partners. So it's an amazing business model and an amazing partnership that we get to change the world for the better together. Can you give a brief description of how the X39 patches work? Okay. Let me share screen here. Okay, so the X39 patches like our other patches, are light therapy devices. So basically, and light therapy has been around for thousands of years, by the way. So we can point back to 5,000 years of light therapy in India. There's a wonderful book, by the way. It's called Let There Be Light, and it's written by Darius Dinshaw. Well, he was the author of the therapy. And what this book does is it provides an instruction manual on how to use different wavelengths of light, different colors, in treating the body and providing therapy for different types of health disorders. So if you are at all interested in light therapy, that would be an excellent book that I could recommend. We know, going back thousands of years to ancient Greece, that they were experimenting with different colored glass as a method of filtering sunlight and providing light therapy, and see what that would do. We know, going back to the early 1900s, there was a Danish scientist, Finsen, who won awards and recognition for his research into light therapy. Today, there's over 5,000 clinical studies that are published in peer review on the use of light to treat different types of health disorders. So what we're doing is we're providing light therapy in a new and novel way. Instead of using a lamp or a cold laser, what we're going to do is stimulate the body with low levels of light using a patch. Now, the patch contains completely organic materials. Technically, they are stereoisomers of amino acids and sugars, other materials, and they're processed in a very specific way so that they will stimulate the skin with very specific wavelengths of light when they're activated by body heat. So your body heat is the power source for the patch. Now, we've also learned over the years, after doing over 80 clinical studies, that you can get systemic effects in the body with the patches. So you can apply them at different points. You can test the blood or the urine, and you'll see that the patch affects the entire body. You can see it bioelectrically too. So what this means is that you could take a patch like X39 and you can apply it to the back of the neck, as it's shown here. You can apply it below the belly button. If you want to apply it near a wound, you could do that as well. So here's an illustration that shows this, but quite simply, when you apply the patch to the body, it gets activated immediately by your body heat, which, by the way, is infrared light. And the patch will stimulate the skin with different wavelengths of light in the infrared and the visible spectra. Now, this is a process that's known as photobiomodulation, and it's a specific type of phototherapy. A good way to think about this is you go out in the sun, and sunlight will cause your body to make vitamin D. That's a great example about how UV light causes the body to make vitamin D, a biochemical in the body. And we know how powerful vitamin D is. Let's say that you're a man over the age of 40 or 50 or 60, and you're concerned about decreasing libido or sexual function and declining testosterone levels. Going out in the sun and exposing your neck and shoulders, where the androgen receptors are, to UV light will cause your body to increase its production of testosterone. And that's something that's clinically proven. When we go to sleep at night, we should sleep in a dark room, because the absence of light is going to turn on the production of melatonin and help us sleep. So there is a very intimate connection between light and the human body. In fact, it has now been proven that all cells emit light, and the light comes from the DNA. There are laser-like pulses of light that come from the cells. And the reason why they're there, because nature is so efficient, is that these pulses of light coordinate, initiate, direct biochemical responses in the cell. So while we are made up of biochemicals, in fact, as Becker found in his book, The Body Electric, it's the energetic system, the bioelectrical system of the body, the energetic system of the body that controls the biochemistry. So as the ancients knew, we are indeed beings of light. And this is what connects us all. All right, let's see about the next question. Can you tell us a little bit about the adhesive that is used with the X39 patch? There's not a lot to say here. We decided right from the beginning that these products were going to be made as medical devices to those standards, because they were going to be applied to the body. So right from the beginning, we went to 3M to use the same type of hypoallergenic adhesive that's used in Band-Aids. So there's going to be 1 in 10,000 people that are allergic to the adhesive, and that's why we, quite frankly, don't get very many complaints about this. So if you apply the patch to your body and you get an allergic reaction, or if you know going into this that you have an allergy to the adhesive that's used in Band-Aids, what you can do is apply the patches to the inside of the clothing. As long as the patch is near the skin, it will still stimulate the skin with low levels of light. So if you have an allergy to the patches and you're worried that you can't use them, allergy to the adhesive, then simply apply the patch to the inside of the clothing, let it touch the skin, the outside of it, and you're good to go. It's still going to work. So the adhesive is manufactured by 3M. It's hypoallergenic, and only 1 in 10,000 people are going to have an allergy to it. How many X39s can you wear at one time? Well, this is actually interesting, because what we find is that most of the time, with all of our patches, 1 patch is enough. There are exceptions to this. But when we do our studies, so if you go on our website, you go to the science section of the website and you see the studies where we did our blood testing, that was only with 1 patch. If you look at the urine studies that we did, I'm actually going to be talking about that in a few minutes in a little bit more detail. Those results were also with only wearing 1 patch. Now, could you use a second X39? Yes, of course you could. The current thinking is that you'll probably get about 80% of the benefits from 1 X39 and maybe another 10 or 20% from the second one. So it's a point of diminishing returns. Now, there are going to be very clear exceptions to this. And what we see is that this is with LifeWave, with the energy patches, and with glutathione. Those are great examples. So let's say that you have someone that has chronic pain, like arthritis or MS or Parkinson's. They have pain throughout the body, and we want to help to relieve that pain. And by the way, this is a good time to say I'm not a medical doctor. Anything that I may say over the course of this discussion is not medical advice, and any recommendation I might make, please take that to your healthcare practitioner before doing it. But I may certainly mention things that I found from over the years of speaking with doctors and doing research into this field that may benefit someone and help improve their quality of life. So what we found through practical experience is that if someone has chronic pain and they have systemic pain throughout their body, is that applying a set of patches on the bottom of the feet or on the lower torso and applying a set of patches on the upper torso works remarkably well at relieving pain. So, for example, you can see a study that we did with Dr. Bruno Brandimart from Italy. We're applying a set of IceWave patches on the bottom of the feet at the acupuncture point, kidney 1, just so you have an accurate location for that. And then applying another set up over here around the thymus. Those acupuncture points are called kidney 27. But again, the idea is on the upper and lower torso that produced a very strong bioelectrical response in the body, which could reduce pain starting within seconds and as much as 100% relief of pain in 2 or 3 minutes. Glutathione has been remarkable when using more than one patch. So, for example, let's say you have someone with a sore throat. You can apply 2 or 3 glutathione patches right around the throat. So right over here, and then if you like, a third one over here. And we find that within minutes, the sore throat can significantly diminish. So we're not going to get into too much more detail about that today, but with X39, I'd say 1 patch is fine. And if you wanted to explore the use of other patches, then go ahead and do that. From a business perspective, I completely agree with Onyx, Steve, and Gina. Only promote X39 in your business. You're going to be incredibly successful and focused by doing that. Then, if your members want to use other patches, for whatever they need it for pain relief, detoxification, stress reduction, whatever the case may be, they can do it. But for business, we're focusing on X39. And 1 patch most of the time is going to be fine. What systems in the body does X39 balance? Okay, let's go back, and instead of talking about this, let's look at a clinical study. And again, clinical studies can be found in the science section of our website. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at this. And we're going to look at a double-blind placebo-controlled study we did starting back in 2018. And, by the way, one of the frustrating things about clinical studies is how long they take, especially when you make a decision that you want to publish them. You can initiate the research, let's say in 2018, but our members may not find out about it for 1 or 2 or 3 years after the fact, because we're waiting for it to be published. COVID, by the way, was especially a problem because during COVID, we went through years where clinics were closed and you couldn't get any clinical studies done. And even when clinics opened up, even today, getting people to come into clinics to participate in studies is quite a challenge because people still have some residual fear of COVID. So, but nevertheless, we push forward. So here's a double-blind study that we did using urine analysis. And this was a study with 50 people. And we wanted to look in a population of people that was over the age of 63. A reason for this is that stem cell activity declines dramatically over the age of 60. You could say a 60 to 80% drop in not only the number of stem cells, but when you're looking at the stemness, the functionality of those stem cells, their ability to release growth factors and repair tissue. Not coincidentally, there is a 60 to 80% drop in copper peptide after the age of 60. So the level of stem cell activity in the body quite closely parallels the levels of copper peptide. So what we did in this study is we wanted to look at immediate effects. This was very early on in the days where we were trying to determine whether or not X39 worked. So we kept the studies very brief. The idea is that if you're stimulating the body with light, we should see an immediate response. So let's take data at baseline after 24 hours of use, and then let's look at what happens after 1 week of using X39. Are there going to be any effects? And we certainly did find effects. So the first thing to know about X39 is that it improves the metabolism. And we see this show up in utilization of amino acids. So amino acids, of course, are the building blocks of proteins and peptides. And this is important because if we have a long-term injury, there's going to be inflammation, there's going to be damaged tissue, and we want to repair that. And the only way we're going to repair damaged tissue is that if we're making collagen, a protein, and that requires the synthesis of amino acids. So what we found was that you put X39 on, and it starts to increase the synthesis of and utilization of amino acids. So that's very, very important. Now, another thing that we found, which at the time to me was surprising in a good way, was that we were seeing improvements in memory within the first 7 days. And that is staggering. Now, we've done research into cognitive function for many, many years. It's an obvious concern for anyone that's aging, which is 100% of the population, and especially for people after they get over the age of 50, when most people have experienced mitochondrial dysfunction, they've got undesirable changes in their hormones, and their memory begins to suffer for a variety of reasons. So to see an improvement in memory in the first 7 days was remarkable. And in fact, we have a separate study looking at exactly why this is and why it happens. We also saw a reduction in blood pressure, which is great. So we don't make any blood pressure claims, but one of the things that we know is that X39 is certainly safe for cardiovascular health. And if you have low blood pressure, not to worry. If you have low blood pressure, you're not going to see a decrease in your blood pressure. This is relative to people with blood pressure that's higher than normal. Now, heart rate variability measures the ratio of muscle contractions in the 4 chambers of the heart. And we've done many studies on heart rate variability over the years, going back to 2005. So it was great to see that by elevating copper peptide, we could see the heart rate variability improve. The rhythm of the heart improves. And there's a lot of benefits to that, not only for the heart, but for the nervous system. Remarkably, we saw that people started to see an improvement in the quality of their sleep the first 24 hours. Now, I hope all of you are going to be at Nova, because I'm going to be covering this in great detail. We're going to be doing an entire training on different types of health conditions and what type of options there are for you to resolve your health condition naturally. I'm not going to be making any medical claims about the patches And anyway, come to Nova and you can see what we're going to talk about there. But one of the subjects I'm going to cover is sleep. So if you have insomnia and or you're having difficulty sleeping, you're not sleeping more than 4, 5, 6 hours, there is definitely help available that's natural, that works great. You have so many options, and we're going to cover that in great detail in Nova. Okay, an improvement in vitality. So when we're looking at anti-aging effects in the body and we want to reverse human aging, it's going to all start with the ability of our cells to make energy, make and use energy. And that happens in an area of the cell called the mitochondria. And normally, as people age, the way they make and use energy and cell communications declines rather sharply. So what we saw was a very powerful anti-aging and age reversal effect with X39. It improves overall health and vitality the first week that you use it. Now, we know that X39 elevates copper peptide. We're going to show our first blood study, actually, that we did, and there's multiple blood studies that we've done. Copper peptide resets the genes to a more youthful state, 1/3 of the genes. So, of course, what we'd like to have is 100%. But resetting 1/3 of the human genome to a younger, healthier state produces remarkable effects. And we see that show up in our testing. X39 is also going to improve breathing. And that gets statistically significant as we approach 7 days. So those are some of the things that we have measured as benefits of X39, and there's many other health benefits. Another way to look at this, when we talk about what systems in the body does X39 balance, you can see that this is a systemic effect. X39, because it improves memory, it's improving the health of the brain. X39 is improving heart rate variability, so it's good for the heart. X39 is improving utilization of amino acids. We find proteins throughout the entire body. So copper peptide is going to have systemic effects. Let's look at 2 public domain published studies on copper peptide. Let's start with this one, regenerative and protective actions of copper peptide in light of new gene data. So, first of all, Lauren Picard was the person that discovered copper peptide. And my opinion is that he needs a Nobel Prize. His work that he did over a period of 50 years on copper peptide is unparalleled. He was the first one to make the observation that you take old liver cells from someone that's 80, and you put them in the blood of someone young and healthy, and those old cells start to function like younger, healthier cells. And one of the factors that's responsible for that is copper peptide. So he should definitely get a Nobel Prize for that work. Now, as part of his published data, one of the things that he finds is that copper peptide resets thousands of genes to a more youthful state. One of the things we might want to look at here, and again, he did this work on injections of copper peptide or examining copper peptide in vitro in a cell culture. We do not do studies looking at anti-cancer effects with X39. We don't look at DNA repair. These are medical claims, so we don't do that type of research. So, but from the point of view of looking at effects of copper peptide, this is extremely interesting. So when we see people get a reduction in stress and anxiety with X39, and especially the combination of X39 and Eon, we can point to clinical data to see, okay, that makes sense. There's anti-anxiety, anti-pain effects from copper peptide. DNA repair is really interesting to me. And there's also effects with copper peptide where it can protect the body from UV radiation. As an example, one of the things we learned quite by accident was you put on an X39 patch, and we see that many people do not get a sunburn, that they simply go directly to a tan. That's an exciting benefit of X39 that I have personally enjoyed. My heritage is German, Italian, and Irish, and I have Irish skin, no question about it. So my entire life, I have burned quite easily in the sun. So if you're someone that burns easily, what I recommend doing, in addition to trying X39, still use sunscreen, of course. I'd have to recommend that legally. But also make sure you're taking a copper supplement. 2.5 milligrams of copper glycinate would be fine. There's natural sources of copper, such as wheatgrass, chocolate, liver, especially, is very high in copper. But if you want to cover the bases, take a daily supplement. Copper is an amazing antiviral. So especially in a post-COVID world, taking copper daily is a smart way to help give yourself protection and for some of the other benefits associated with copper. But in any case, this is a good study to look at with respect to benefits of copper peptide. Another one is this one over here, and we're going to talk about recovery of stem cells. But just so you can see the where this is coming from, it is in this article here, again by Dr. Picard. GHK peptide is a natural modulator of multiple cellular pathways in skin regeneration. If you simply do a search on copper peptide and stem cells, you can find these studies quite easily. You can even just do a Google search on GHKCU and clinical studies. And again, you can find it quite easily. So this article is going to give a great introduction to copper peptide and some of the many, many benefits that are associated with it. There's one on DNA repair. Yeah. So there's been a lot of information that's been obtained through clinical studies on the connection between copper peptide and stem cells. I know this was one of the questions that was being asked. So copper peptide acts as what's called a Yamanaka factor. And copper peptide is going to have a number of significant benefits when it comes to stem cells and wound healing. And that's quite evident by all the clinical research. So how does this work exactly? First thing is that all of the benefits of copper peptide eventually trace back to the use of this peptide as a gene modulator, meaning it's going to reset genes to a younger, healthier state. When we're looking at stem cell activity, the relevant gene is P63. P63 is going to turn on the ability of stem cells to proliferate. So in other words, let's say that you have an acute or chronic injury. Few things there. First thing is there's an inflammatory response. So if you want to heal from any chronic injury or a chronic health condition, you've got to get the inflammation under control. Now, there's ways to do this through your diet, through your lifestyle, through supplementation. We don't make medical claims about the patches. Elevating glutathione using a product like Eon helps to manage inflammation. The only thing we claim about that is that it's useful for stress reduction and useful for managing pain. Where this matters, though, is that stem cells are going to be killed off by oxidative stress and inflammation. So if you're wondering, why do I have arthritis? How come I haven't healed? You've got to get the inflammation under control so the stem cells can go in there and repair the damaged tissue. So copper peptide is going to be part of reducing inflammation and managing it. It's going to make the stem cells act and behave like younger, healthier cells, and it's going to allow the stem cells to get to where they're going. Copper peptide also acts as a Yamanaka factor, meaning that you increase the copper peptide levels in the skin, and they revert skin stem cells back over into pluripotent stem cells. Those pluripotent stem cells then get into the blood, get into your circulatory system, and go to where they're needed. So elevating copper peptide has enormous benefits when it comes to repairing damaged systems in the body. This was also something that I thought was worth mentioning. It's with VEGF. When we were doing our stem cell research at the National University of Ireland in Galway, this was the key growth factor that we were looking at, VEGF, vascular endothelial growth factor. And that's because of the obvious benefits that VEGF is going to have on the circulatory system, on the cardiovascular system. So if you can elevate VEGF, I'm not making a medical claim. This is for injections of copper peptide. Copper peptide injections can be used to elevate VEGF and treat many different types of cardiovascular disease. So that's the interest in it. And of course, you study MSC stem cells, which I pronounce as mesenchymal because that's how they pronounce it in Ireland. I know there's other pronunciations for that. Okay. That might have been a very roundabout way of answering that question. So thank you for bearing with me. What's your favorite scientific study that you've done so far on X39? I think the favorite is always the first. When you're an inventor and you create something, with a lot of prayer, by the way, to me is always the best way to create, is through prayer, through divine guidance. So you're getting the truth. You're looking at nature and turning to nature for examples. So you're doing things in harmony with the human body and for the planet. But when you're developing something new and you do a study and you see for the very first time, okay, I'm not crazy. This thing actually works. I all that time and energy and effort that I spent researching this and believing that there could be an outcome, it actually works. That becomes your favorite study most of the time. That's what I found anyway. So, in this example, this was a small pilot study, but we have many more studies now. Again, go to the science section of the website. But we've done our double-blind studies at this point on using blood studies, measuring increases in copper peptide. And so what we found in this study, which was a pilot, our first one, again, taking people over the age of 60, because that's the group that's going to have lowest levels of copper peptide, we found that just after 1 day, that GHK is going to increase to statistical significance. And then, of course, once you synthesize GHK, which has its own benefits, it then binds with copper and becomes copper peptide. And we do, in fact, get statistical significance on this within the first week of using X39. So this study is fantastic because it was our first confirmation that the patch worked, and it also showed that using X39 the first day would produce a benefit. So that was my favorite study. Is it possible that X39 protects us against 5G? We have preliminary data to suggest that X39 and X49 protect against 5G, but we're not ready to make that claim. So I'll explain. When we want to run an experiment, and this is very well known in physics, and this is done throughout the world, you create what's called a Faraday cage to block out electromagnetic radiation. So let's say that you put something inside a box that is covered with a copper screen, a copper mesh, and then you ground the copper. Electromagnetic waves can't get through. So there's a variety of reasons why you would want to do an experiment like that. Now, when we're talking about 5G, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, all this synthetic radiation, the reason why we should be concerned about this is because studies have shown that this microwave energy does in fact damage healthy tissue. We can go back more than 15 years, look at studies done at the University of Colorado School of Medicine, and we see holding a cell phone up to your head will increase heating in brain tissue and damage brain tissue. So you should never hold a cell phone up to your head. These are microwave energies. So if we look at 5G, it's going to be a microwave of 2.4 gigahertz and higher. Now, 2.4 gigahertz is the same frequency as a microwave oven. And the way a microwave oven works is that it causes water molecules to rotate. And this generates friction and generates heat. I'll have some non-microwave water for a moment. So we are unfortunately being bombarded by microwave energy from all of these sources. It's not going away anytime soon. The government doesn't want to deal with it or admit that it's a problem. And fortunately, we were created to adapt. We have copper in our skin. So just like that copper mesh in a Faraday cage is going to screen out electromagnetic energy, if we take a copper supplement or get enough copper in our diet, and we increase copper peptide, GHK and AHK, we can reduce the effect of radiation on our body. This is actually documented in studies on GHKCU, that it will reduce the impact of UV radiation on the body, which of course is a higher frequency than microwaves coming from 5G. We have preliminary data in a study that shows that X39 and X49 within days can reduce the impact of 5G on the body. But we're not ready to make that claim, and there, I would say, are certain legal issues with making that claim relative to FDA and FTC. So we may never make the claim, but I'm delighted people are going to get that benefit anyway. Okay, the quantum, I think I've answered most of these questions now. The quantum field team continues to explode as the organization focuses on X39. And thank you for staying focused on X39. Again, brilliant business decision by Onyx Cole and Steve and Gina Merritt. Brilliant. And it's why, quite frankly, the US is growing and a market like Europe isn't. Europe, they take a completely different posture on this and market all the patches. It's a mistake what you're doing with X39 and focusing on it, absolutely the right thing to do. So as your team begins to bring sales of X39 up to $1 billion annually, is LifeWave capable of producing enough X39 patches? I'm delighted to say yes. Maybe at some point we should open up our factory. I've been a little bit like Willy Wonka, wanting to keep the patch factory a secret, but maybe we'll open up that up for tours to SPDs at some point in the future. By the way, it's located on the west coast of Ireland in Galway County, which is a beautiful place to visit. So maybe at some point in the time, some lucky SPDs will have a retreat there. I promise it'll be in the summer when it's not raining in Ireland, which it is most of the time. But we have a facility in the United States, and our primary facility at this point is in Ireland. We can already support a company doing more than $1 billion a year in sales. And this is something that is definitely one of our key strengths. So when we started to grow in 2008, we made the decision to build a factory over in Ireland, and that factory got set up in 2010. So both of our factories are fully automated, and just over the last 2 years, we made a very large investment, millions of dollars, to expand and add additional equipment because of the rate at which we're growing. So if you were to come over to our factory today, you would see that we have equipment that's fully automated, and we have equipment that will automatically package the patches, and we have a robotic arm with a computerized visual inspection system that will kick out any rejects, which are a very, very small percentage. In other words, you have to seal the patches to contain the liquid materials inside, and you get a fraction of 1% that don't seal properly. And what we have today is a system where a robotic arm comes down. It can detect that patch is leaking, and it kicks it off the line automatically. So, and we have a trigger point that when we get to 600 million a year in sales, that we're going to go ahead and add additional equipment. So we will always be staying way ahead of the curve. But today we can support a company doing way over $1 billion a year. Also, another thing to add to that is Coleman Dillon, who is our Chief Operating Officer, comes to us with 23 years of experience from the medical device and pharmaceutical industry, as do a few other people that are in manufacturing and quality control. So it's because of his efforts that the patches today are manufactured as medical devices. And when you go into the facility that we have in Ireland, looks like a facility where you make medical devices, because it in fact is. So I believe that's going to do it for me. I've been on now for about an hour. So again, I want to take the opportunity to thank you so much for all of your time and learning a little bit more about LifeWave. At the holiday season, whether or not you're celebrating Christmas or Hanukkah, whatever you're celebrating, I would like to wish all of you a happy, healthy, and peaceful holiday season. Thank you for everything that you do to share the vision of our company, to bring light to the world, to bring peace and healing, to offer people hope. I don't know of anything that we could do in this world that's more meaningful. And each and every one of you are ambassadors for the company in bringing this message to people all over the world. And for that, I'm incredibly grateful and incredibly appreciative.